The rain was relentless, hammering the pavement outside the glass doors of Harper and Sons Construction, where Ethan Caldwell stood frozen, termination letter trembling in his hand. 10 years of sweat, late nights, and unwavering loyalty reduced to a single paragraph citing company values. His crime: loving someone the world wasn't ready to accept. Ethan, 28, had always been the dependable one. His hazel eyes, sharp and kind, had won over clients and colleagues alike in the small town of Willow Creek, Ohio. He'd built homes, schools, even the community center where kids now played basketball. But that morning, when a coworker spotted him holding hands with Marcus at the county fair, whispers turned into a corporate guillotine. By noon, his boss, Mr. Harper himself, had called him into the office, face stern, voice cold. "We can't have that here, Ethan. You understand." The words stung worse than the rain soaking his jacket as he stood outside, staring at the crumpled letter. Fired for being gay. In 2025, in America, it still happened. He wanted to scream, to march back in and demand justice, but his feet felt cemented to the ground. The life he'd built, steady job, modest apartment, dreams of a future with Marcus, was unraveling. Marcus. The thought of him sparked a warmth that cut through the chill. Marcus Rivera, 27, with his infectious laugh and curls that bounced when he got excited, had been Ethan's anchor for 2 years. They'd met at a local bookshop, bonding over dog-eared sci-fi novels and bad coffee. Marcus, a graphic designer who freelanced from their shared apartment, had a way of making the world feel lighter. But how would Ethan tell him this? How do you confess that your love cost you everything? As he turned to leave, head bowed against the storm, the receptionist, Clara, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a penchant for knitting, slipped out the door. She pressed a small wooden box into his hands, her eyes darting nervously. "Don't open it here," she whispered. "Just take it. And don't give up." Before Ethan could ask what it meant, she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. The box was heavy, intricately carved with patterns that felt oddly familiar, though he couldn't place why. It wasn't just a trinket, it felt like a secret, a lifeline. Ethan shoved it into his jacket pocket, the weight grounding him as he trudged toward home. Willow Creek's quiet streets, lined with maple trees and faded storefronts, seemed to mock him now. This town, where he'd grown up, where he'd thought he belonged, had just spit him out. When he reached their apartment, Marcus was sprawled on the couch, sketching on his tablet, his earbuds blasting jazz. The sight of him carefree, unaware, made Ethan's chest ache. He dropped his keys on the counter, louder than intended, and Marcus looked up, his smile fading as he saw Ethan's face. "Babe, what's wrong?" Ethan handed him the letter, unable to speak. Marcus's eyes scanned the page, his jaw tightening with every word. "This is bullshit," he said, voice low but shaking. "They can't do this. We'll fight it. We'll sue. We'll..." "Marcus," Ethan cut in, his voice hoarse. "They can. They did." He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I don't know what to do." Marcus knelt in front of him, taking his hands. "We'll figure it out. Together." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed fear. They'd talked about a future marriage, a house, maybe a dog, but now, with Ethan's income gone, that future felt like a cruel mirage. Ethan pulled the box from his pocket, turning it over in his hands. "Clara gave me this. Said not to open it there." Marcus leaned closer, tracing the carvings with a finger. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "But why?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. She looked scared, like she was risking something. He hesitated. Then Pride opened the lid. Inside was a folded note, a key, and a USB drive. The note, in Clara's neat handwriting, read, "Go to 214 Maple Street. Use the key. Check the drive. You're not alone." Ethan's heart raced. Maple Street was on the edge of town, a quiet area with old houses and older secrets. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Marcus's eyes were wide, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Only one way to find out," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Let's go." The rain had eased to a drizzle as they drove to Maple Street, the box on the seat between them. Number 214 was a small, weathered house with ivy climbing its walls. The key fit perfectly in the lock, and as the door creaked open, Ethan felt a shift like stepping into a story he didn't yet understand. The air inside was musty, the furniture dated but tidy. A single lamp glowed in the corner, as if someone had been there recently. Marcus plugged the USB into his laptop, his fingers trembling slightly. The screen lit up with files, documents, photos, even audio recordings. One file was labeled Harper & Sons, The Truth. Ethan clicked it, and a grainy video began to play. A man's voice, low and urgent, filled the room. "If you're watching this, you've been wronged, and we're going to make it right." Ethan's breath caught. The voice belonged to someone he'd never met, but the words carried a promise that ignited something deep within him: hope, fragile but fierce. Whoever left this box had known what was coming, and they'd chosen to fight. The video flickered, revealing a man in his 50s, silver hair glinting under dim light. "My name is Thomas Reed," he said, his voice steady but heavy with regret. "I worked for Harper & Sons for 15 years. They fired me in 2015 for the same reason they've likely targeted you." Ethan's stomach twisted as Thomas continued. "This company hides behind values, but it's a lie. They've been purging anyone who doesn't fit their mold, especially people like us." Marcus gripped Ethan's hand, his knuckles whitening. The screen showed photos of Thomas with a partner, their smiles bright against a backdrop of pride flags. Then came documents, emails between Harper executives, discussing problem employees with coded language. One email, dated a week before Ethan's firing, mentioned him by name. "Caldwell's lifestyle is a liability. Handle it discreetly." "They planned this," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with anger. Ethan couldn't speak. His eyes locked on the screen as Thomas detailed a network of former employees, all wronged by Harper & Sons. The USB held years of evidence, discriminatory policies, hushed-up lawsuits, even threats to silence whistleblowers. Thomas's final words hit hard. "Use this. Fight back. You're not alone." Ethan closed the laptop, his mind racing. Who left this at Clara's desk? He asked, more to himself than Marcus. Clara, the quiet receptionist who'd always greeted him with a smile, had risked her job. Maybe Moretto pass him this box. Why? And why this house? Marcus explored the living room, pausing at a bookshelf filled with legal texts and faded photos. One showed a younger Clara with Thomas, laughing at a company picnic. She knew him, Marcus said, holding up the frame. This isn't random. Ethan. She's part of this. Ethan's phone buzzed, breaking the silence. A text from an unknown number. Stay safe. Meet me at Willow Creek Diner. 8 p.m. His pulse quickened. This is getting weird, he said, showing Marcus the message. Marcus's eyes narrowed. We go. But we're careful. The diner was a relic of Willow Creek's past, its neon sign flickering against the night. Inside, the smell of coffee and fried onions hung heavy. Ethan and Marcus slid into a booth, the box tucked under Ethan's arm. At 8:03, a woman in her 40s, with short blonde hair and a nervous energy, approached. "You're Ethan," she said. Not a question. "I'm Rachel. Thomas was my brother." Her words landed like a punch. Rachel slid into the booth, her hands fidgeting with a napkin. "He died last year," she said softly. "Heart attack. But he never stopped fighting Harper and Sons. He built this network. People like you, wrong for who they are. Clara was his friend, been waiting for someone like you to help finish what he started." Ethan's throat tightened. "Finish what?" he asked. Rachel leaned in, her voice low. "Exposing them. Harper's been dodging accountability for decades, using their influence to silence people. That USB has enough to start a lawsuit, maybe even a criminal case. But it's dangerous. They've got powerful friends." Marcus's jaw clenched. "So what's the plan? We just hand this to a lawyer and hope for the best?" Rachel shook her head. "It's not that simple. Harper's got eyes everywhere in this town. You need to find the others, people like Thomas. Like you. They're waiting." Ethan's mind spun. A lawsuit. A fight against a company that had shaped Willow Creek for generations. He glanced at Marcus, whose eyes burned with determination. "We're in," Marcus said, before Ethan could speak. "But we need to know everything." Rachel handed them a slip of paper with 3 names and addresses. "Start here. These are people Thomas trusted. They'll help you build the case." She hesitated, then added, "Be careful. Harper's already watching you." As they left the diner, the weight of the box in Ethan's hands felt heavier. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with tension. Back at the apartment, they pored over the USB's contents, financial records showing hush money, testimonies from former employees, even a recorded conversation where Mr. Harper bragged about cleaning house. Each file was a piece of a puzzle, revealing a company rotten at its core. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. He lay beside Marcus, staring at the ceiling, the box on the nightstand like a silent challenge. He'd been a builder his whole life, crafting homes from blueprints. Now, he was being asked to build something else, justice. But the cost was steep. Harper and Sons wasn't just a company, it was Willow Creek's backbone. Taking them down could tear the town apart. By morning, Ethan and Marcus were on the road, heading to the first name on Rachel's list, Sarah Gwynn, a former HR manager who'd left Harper's after refusing to fire a trans employee. Her house was a small bungalow on the outskirts of town, surrounded by wildflowers. Sarah, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a guarded smile, welcomed them cautiously. "You're Thomas's people," she said, glancing at the box. "I've been waiting." She led them to a cluttered office, where stacks of papers and a laptop awaited. "I've got my own files," she said, "but it's not enough without yours. Harper's been burying complaints for years. We need to go public media, lawyers, everything." Ethan hesitated. "What if they come after us? My life's already a mess." Sarah's expression softened. "I know. I lost my career too. But if we don't fight, they'll keep doing this. To you, to me, to the next person who dares to be themselves." Marcus squeezed Ethan's shoulder. "She's right. We can't let them win." Ethan nodded, a spark of resolve igniting. This wasn't just about him, Anna Maria, it was about everyone Harper had hurt. He opened the box, pulling out the USB. "Let's do this," he said, his voice steady for the first time in days. Sarah's office became their war room. The table was buried under papers, Thomas's files, Sarah's records, and Ethan's own notes from a decade at Harper and Sons. Each document painted a clearer picture, a company that preached family values while systematically targeting anyone who didn't conform. Ethan's firing wasn't an anomaly. It was policy, unwritten but ruthless. Marcus, ever the organizer, created a digital archive of the USB's contents, categorizing emails, recordings, and testimonies. "This one's gold," he said, pointing to a 2018 email where Harper's CFO suggested discreet terminations to avoid bad press. Ethan's stomach churned. He recognized names in the file's coworkers he'd laughed with, shared beers with, who'd vanished without explanation. He'd thought they'd just moved on. Now he knew better. Sarah introduced them to the second name on Rachel's list, Javier Morales, a former site supervisor who'd been fired in 2020 for unprofessional conduct after coming out as bisexual. Javier, now 35, lived in a cramped apartment downtown, his walls covered in sketches of construction projects he'd never get to build. "Harper blacklisted me," he said, pouring coffee. "No one in Ohio would hire me after. I'm driving for Uber now." Javier's story mirrored Ethan's loyalty rewarded with betrayal. But he hadn't given up. He'd been collecting stories from other ex-employees, building a network Thomas had started. "We've got a dozen people ready to talk," Javier said. "But we need a spark. Something public." Harper's scared of exposure. Ethan felt the weight of their expectations. He wasn't a leader, not like Thomas. He was just a guy who wanted to love Marcus and live quietly. But the box, still sitting on Sarah's table, seemed to demand more. Its carvings caught the light, almost pulsing with purpose. Clara's note echoed in his mind, "You're not alone." That night, Ethan and Marcus met the third contact, Aisha Williams, a lawyer who'd once worked pro bono for Thomas. Aisha, in her late 40s, had a commanding presence and a voice that could silence a room. Over dinner at her sleek Columbus office, she laid out the stakes. "Harper's got deep pockets and deeper connections," she said. "Lawsuits alone won't do it. We need public pressure, media, protests, the works." Marcus leaned forward, eyes bright. "What about a website? We could leak the files anonymously. Let the world see what Harper's done." Aisha nodded. "Risky, but smart. If we time it right, it could force their hand." Ethan hesitated. "What about Clara? She's still inside. If they trace this back to her," Aisha's expression softened. "We'll protect her. But she knew the risks when she gave you that box." Back at Sarah's, they began planning. Marcus mocked up a website design, simple but striking, with a timeline of Harper's wrongs. Sarah reached out to her contacts in local media, while Javier rallied the network of ex-employees. Ethan, still grappling with his role, pored over the files, memorizing every detail. One recording chilled him, "Mr. Harper, laughing with a board member about keeping the company pure." It was dated the day Ethan was fired. The next morning, a knock at Sarah's door startled them. It was Clara, her face pale, clutching a scarf. "They know something's up," she said, voice trembling. "I heard Harper talking to his lawyer about loose ends. I think they suspect me." Ethan's heart sank. "You need to get out," he urged. Clara shook her head. "Not yet. I've got one more thing for you." She handed him a flash drive. Financial records. Offshore accounts. Harper's been skimming profits to fund his values campaign. It's all here. Ethan stared at the drive, a mix of gratitude and fear washing over him. Clara was risking everything. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Her eyes softened. "Thomas was like a son to me. When they fired him, it broke him. I won't let them break you too." As Clara left, Ethan felt a fire ignite within him. This wasn't just about his job, Anna Maria. It was about dismantling a system that had crushed so many. But the risks were mounting. That afternoon, Marcus noticed a black SUV parked across from Sarah's house, its tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. They're watching us, he said, voice low. Ethan's grip tightened on the box. Then we moved faster. They finalized the website that night, uploading the files under pseudonyms. Marcus added a call to action. Join us. Share your story. Stop Harper and Sons. Aisha connected them with a journalist, Emily Chun, who worked for a progressive Ohio outlet. Emily was skeptical but intrigued, promising to review the files. If this checks out, she said, it's huge. But you're poking a bear. As they hit publish on the website, Ethan's heart pounded. The files were out there now, raw and undeniable. Within hours, the site had hundreds of hits. Ex-employees shared their stories in the comments, heartbreaking accounts of discrimination, fear, and loss. Ethan read each one, his resolve hardening. But the SUV was still outside, a silent threat. Late that night, Marcus pulled Ethan close. Are we doing the right thing? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ethan kissed his forehead, the box's weight a constant reminder. We have to, he said. For Thomas. For Clara. For us. But as he closed his eyes, the fear lingered. Harper wouldn't go down without a fight. The website went viral by morning. Ethan woke to his phone buzzing with notification shares, comments, even messages from strangers thanking them for speaking out. Emily Chin's article dropped at 9 a.m. A blistering expose titled Harper and Sons, A Legacy of Bigotry. It cited the leaked emails, the recordings, and Clara's financial records, painting a damning picture of a company built on hypocrisy. Willow Creek was buzzing, and Harper and Sons was scrambling. But the victory felt hollow. The black SUV was gone, replaced by two men in suits lingering near Sarah's street. Ethan spotted them while grabbing coffee, their eyes tracking him like hawks. Back at the bungalow, he told the group. They're not stupid, Sarah said, pacing. They know we're behind this. We need to move. Aisha suggested a safe house in Columbus, owned by a friend in the network. We can work from there. Stay under the radar, she said. Marcus packed their laptops, while Javier gathered the physical files. Ethan clutched the box, its carvings now a symbol of their fight. As they loaded Sarah's van, a text from Clara arrived. They're searching my desk. I'm leaving. Stay safe. The drive to Columbus was tense, the road stretching endlessly under a gray sky. Ethan kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting the SUV to reappear. Marcus, sensing his unease, squeezed his hand. We're in this together, he said. Ethan nodded, but the weight of Clara's sacrifice gnawed at him. She'd lost her job, maybe her safety, to help them. The safe house was a modest duplex in a quiet neighborhood, its walls lined with books and protest posters. Aisha's friend, Malik, a trans activist in his 30s, welcomed them with coffee and a plan. We've got momentum, he said. The article's trending, and people are organizing a protest outside Harper's HQ tomorrow. But we need more evidence to seal the deal. Clara's flash drive was their ace. It detailed offshore accounts where Harper funneled money to fund anti-LGBT campaigns, disguised as charitable donations. Marcus cross-referenced the data with Thomas's files, uncovering a web of shell companies. This could bring them down, he said, eyes wide. Not just a lawsuit, criminal charges. But Harper wasn't idle. That afternoon, a cease and desist letter arrived, emailed to Aisha from Harper's legal team. It accused them of defamation and demanded the website's removal. They're scared, Aisha said, tossing the letter aside. This is a bluff. But we need to be ready for worse. Worse came that night. Emily Chin called, her voice urgent. Someone broke into my office. They took my laptop. But I've got backups. You need to watch your backs. Ethan's heart raced. The men in suits. The SUV wasn't paranoia. Harper was fighting dirty. The protest was set for noon the next day, outside Harper and Son's gleaming office in downtown Willow Creek. Ethan and Marcus arrived early, joining a crowd of 50 former employees, activists, and locals who'd read Emily's article. Javier held a megaphone, rallying the group with stories of Harper's wrongs. Ethan scanned the crowd, searching for Clara, but she wasn't there. His stomach twisted with worry. As the protest grew, so did the tension. Harper's security team stood at the building's entrance, stone-faced, while counter-protesters shired muscle. Ethan suspected shouted slurs from across the street. Marcus held Ethan's hand tightly, his jaw set. "We're not backing down," he said. Ethan nodded, but fear gnawed at him. What if this went too far? Then he saw her, Clara, slipping through the crowd, her scarf pulled tight. She grabbed Ethan's arm, her eyes wide. "They're planning something," she whispered. "I overheard Harper's lawyer. They're going to spin this. Blame you for fraud. You need to release the financials now." Ethan's mind raced. Releasing the offshore account details could escalate everything legal action, maybe arrests. But holding back wasn't an option. He nodded to Marcus, who pulled out his laptop and uploaded the files to the website, Live from the Protest. The crowd cheered as the update went live, but Ethan's eyes were on the Harper building. A figure stood at a window, watching. Mr. Harper himself. The protest stretched into the evening, with local news crews arriving. Emily Chun was there, interviewing Javier and Sarah. Ethan stayed in the background, clutching the box, its weight a reminder of why they were fighting. But as the crowd dispersed, a police car pulled up. 2 officers approached, their faces grim. "Ethan Caldwell," one asked. Ethan's heart stopped. "You're wanted for questioning. Come with us." Marcus stepped forward, eyes blazing. "On what grounds?" The officer's gaze was cold. "Fraud and defamation." "Let's go." Ethan felt the world tilt. This was Harper's move to silence him before the financials could do more damage. As the officers led him away, Marcus's voice rang out. "We're not done. Ethan, I've got you." Handcuffs clicked around Ethan's wrists, the box left behind with Marcus. As the police car pulled away, Ethan caught a glimpse of Clara in the crowd, tears in her eyes. He didn't know what came next, but one thing was certain: Harper had underestimated them. The police station was cold, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as Ethan sat in a small interrogation room. The officer across from him, a stern man named Detective Walsh, slid a folder across the table. "You've been busy, Mr. Caldwell," he said, tapping the folder. "Leaking company secrets, stirring up trouble. Harper and Sons says you fabricated those financials." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I didn't fabricate anything. The truth is on that website." Walsh leaned back, unimpressed. "Truth's a funny thing. Easy to twist when you've got money like Harper does." Ethan's mind raced. Was Walsh in Harper's pocket, or just doing his job? Either way, the accusation stung. Fraud. Defamation. Words meant to bury him. Outside, Marcus was a whirlwind. He'd rallied Sarah, Javier, and Aisha at the safe house, where they monitored the website's traffic. The financial records had exploded online, shared across platforms with hashtags like Harper Exposed. Marcus's phone buzzed with messages from strangers offering support, legal advice, even donations. But his focus was Ethan. "We need to get him out," he told Aisha, his voice cracking. "They're framing him." Aisha was already on it, calling in favors from her legal network. "I've got a friend at the ACLU," she said, She'll file a motion to dismiss. But we need to keep the pressure on Harper. More exposure. More protests. Javier nodded, typing furiously. I'm reaching out to the network. We'll hit every major city in Ohio. Meanwhile, Clara had vanished. Marcus tried calling her, but her phone went to voicemail. Worry gnawed at him. She'd been their lifeline, the one who'd started this. Where was she? He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the next move. Emily Chun agreed to publish a follow-up, detailing Ethan's arrest as retaliation. This could backfire on Harper, she said. Public sympathy's on your side. In the interrogation room, Ethan held his ground. Walsh pressed him about the financial records, but Ethan refused to name Clara. I got them anonymously, he said, sticking to the story. Walsh's eyes narrowed. You're protecting someone. That's going to cost you. Ethan leaned forward, voice steady. I've already lost everything. What's a little more? After hours of questioning, they let him go. No charges. Just a warning. Aisha's ACLU contact had worked fast, threatening a media storm if Ethan was detained longer. Outside, Marcus was waiting, his arms wrapping around Ethan the moment he stepped out. You okay? He asked, voice thick with relief. Ethan nodded, though his hands shook. They're scared. Marcus. This is them lashing out. Back at the safe house, the group strategized. The protest had grown, with hundreds planning to gather outside Harper's HQ the next day. Aisha had secured a meeting with a federal prosecutor willing to review the financials. If these offshore accounts check out, she said, Harper could face RICO charges. But we need Clara's testimony to tie it together. Ethan's heart sank. Clara was still missing. He pulled out the box, tracing its carvings. She risked everything for this, he said softly. We have to find her. Javier suggested checking her house, but Sarah shook her head. Too risky. If Harper's watching, they'll expect us there. Instead, they sent Malik to discreetly ask neighbors if they'd seen her. He returned with grim news. Clara's car was gone. Her house dark. Panic crept in, but Ethan pushed it down. She's smart, he said. She's hiding. We keep going. Marcus nodded, uploading more files to the Websitian audio of Harper threatening a former employee. The internet erupted, with activists calling for boycotts of Harper's projects. Even some of Ethan's old co-workers, men he'd thought were loyal to the company, reached out, offering support. The next day's protest was massive, spilling into the streets of Willow Creek. Ethan stood with Marcus, holding a sign that read, Love is not a crime. Javier led chants, while Sarah handed out flyers with QR codes linking to the website. The energy was electric, but Ethan's eyes kept scanning for Clara. Then, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd. Rachel, Thomas's sister, her face grim. She's gone, Rachel said, pulling Ethan aside. Clara. They found her car at the edge of town, abandoned. No sign of her. Ethan's knees buckled. Marcus caught him, his voice fierce. We don't know she's hurt. She could be hiding. But Rachel's eyes told a different story. Harper's done this before, she whispered. People disappear. Ethan's vision blurred with tears. Clara had given him the box, the spark that started this fight. If she was gone because of it, he clutched Marcus's hand, grounding himself. We end this, he said, voice breaking. For her. For Thomas. For everyone. The crowd roared around them, unaware of the cost. But Ethan knew this fight was no longer just about justice. It was about survival. The news of Clara's disappearance hit like a tidal wave. Ethan couldn't shake the image of her car, empty and abandoned, its keys still in the ignition. The group gathered at the safe house, faces drawn, as Aisha laid out their next steps. "We can't stop," she said. "Clara wouldn't want us to. The prosecutor's reviewing the financials, and the media's eating this up. We're close." But close felt like a cruel tease. Ethan's dreams were haunted by Clara's face, her whispered warning about Harper's plans. Marcus stayed up with him, their hands intertwined as they pored over the website's analytics. Thousands were visiting daily, sharing stories of discrimination from companies beyond Harper and Sons. Their fight was sparking a movement, but it came at a cost. Javier tracked down a lead on Clara grainy security video from a gas station near her car's location. It showed her, scarf loose, talking to a man in a dark jacket before driving off. She didn't look scared, Javier said, replaying the footage. Maybe she's laying low. Ethan wanted to believe it, but the man in the jacket felt like another piece of Harper's puzzle. Aisha's prosecutor contact, Elena Torres, called with an update. "The offshore accounts are real," she said. "We're building a case, but we need more witnesses. Ideally Clara. Without her, it's harder to prove intent." Ethan's heart sank. Clara was the key, and she was gone. He looked at the box, its carvings almost mocking him now. What had she risked everything for? Marcus suggested a bold move, go public with their identities. "We've been anonymous too long," he said. "If we step into the light, it'll humanize this. People will rally behind us." Sarah hesitated. "It's dangerous. Harper's already targeted Ethan." But Ethan nodded. "Marcus is right. If we hide, they control the narrative." They recorded a video that night, sitting side by side in the safe house's dim living room. Ethan spoke first, his voice raw but steady. "My name is Ethan Caldwell. I was fired from Harper and Sons for being gay. This isn't just my story, it's the story of dozens of others. Silence for who they are." Marcus took his hand, adding, "We're fighting for justice. For Clara. For everyone Harper's hurt. Join us." The video went live the next morning, shared across every platform. By noon, it had millions of views. Strangers left comments of support, while activists organized solidarity protests in Cleveland and Cincinnati. But Harper fought back. A press release called Ethan a disgruntled ex-employee spreading lies. The men in suits were back, now tailing the safe house. Elena called again, her tone urgent. "The feds are interested, but Harper's lawyers are pushing hard. They're claiming the financials are forged. We need Clara or another insider to corroborate." Ethan's frustration boiled over. "What about the recordings? The emails?" Elena sighed. "Strong, but not airtight. A witness seals it." That night, Malik returned with a breakthrough. A neighbor had seen Clara near a motel on the outskirts of Columbus, alive but shaken. "She's hiding," Malik said. "I got a number." Ethan dialed it, his hands trembling. After 3 rings, Clara's voice came through, faint but real. "Ethan, I'm okay. I had to run. Harper's men were at my house." Relief flooded him, but Clara's next words chilled him. "They're planning to destroy the evidence. There's a server at their HQ with everything, backups of what you have and more. If you can get to it, you'll have them." She gave an address and a code for a back entrance, then hung up. "Don't call again. It's not safe." Ethan relayed the plan to the group. Infiltrating Harper's HQ was insane, security cameras, guards, the works. But the server could be their checkmate. Javier volunteered to go with Ethan, while Marcus and Sarah would keep the website running and the protests alive. Aisha warned them of the risks. If you're caught, it's over. Trespassing, theft, maybe worse. Ethan looked at Marcus, his heart aching. "I have to do this. he said. Marcus nodded, pulling him into a fierce hug. Come back to me, he whispered. As Ethan and Javier prepared, the box sat on the table, its carvings glinting. It felt like a talisman now, a reminder of why they couldn't stop. Under cover of night, Ethan and Javier slipped into Harper's HQ through the back entrance, using Clara's code. The building was eerie, its halls silent but heavy with secrets. They found the server room, a humming maze of blinking lights. Javier, who'd once overseen the company's IT upgrades, worked fast, downloading files onto a drive. But as they finished, footsteps echoed outside. Someone was coming. Ethan's heart pounded as the footsteps grew closer. He and Javier crouched behind a server rack, the drive still downloading. The door creaked open, and a security guard's flashlight swept the room. Anyone in here? The guard called, his voice gruff. Ethan held his breath, praying the download would finish. The progress bar hit 100%, and Javier yanked the drive free. They waited, silent, until the guard left. Slipping out was harder. Cameras lined the halls, and an alarm blared as they hit the exit. They sprinted to Javier's car, tires screeching as they sped into the night. Back at the safe house, Marcus was pacing, his face pale. You're insane, he said, pulling Ethan into a desperate hug. But you're alive. The server files were a gold mine of contracts, internal memos, even a list of problem employees marked for termination. One memo, from Harper himself, outlined a plan to discredit Ethan's group by framing them for hacking. They were ready for us, Ethan said, his voice shaking. Aisha nodded grimly. This is why we need Clara. She can testify to the server's authenticity. Marcus uploaded the new files to the website, careful to redact sensitive data. The response was immediate. News outlets picked up the story, and the hashtag HarperExposed trended nationwide. Protests spread to Chicago and Pittsburgh, with thousands demanding accountability. But Harper's team doubled down, filing lawsuits against Ethan, Marcus, and the website for corporate espionage. Elena, the prosecutor, called with good news. The feds are moving. The server files are enough for a warrant. They're raiding Harper's HQ tomorrow. Ethan felt a flicker of hope, but it was tempered by fear. Clara was still in hiding, and Harper's men were circling closer. That night, the safe house's doorbell rang. Malik opened it to find a note. Stop now, or you'll regret it. No signature, but the message was clear. Ethan couldn't sleep, the boxes weighed heavy in his hands. Marcus lay beside him, his breathing uneven. What if we lose? Marcus whispered. Ethan kissed his forehead. We won't. Not while we have each other. But doubt gnawed at him. Harper's reach was long, and the note felt like a promise. The raid hit Harper's HQ at dawn. News cameras captured agents carting out computers, while Mr. Harper stood stone-faced on the steps. Ethan watched from the safe house, his heart racing. Aisha's phone buzzed Elena, confirming the server files matched Clara's financials. We've got them, she said. But we need Clara to testify in court. Finding Clara became their focus. Malik tracked her to a motel in Dayton, where she'd been moving between rooms to stay hidden. Ethan and Marcus drove to meet her, the box in Ethan's lap. Clara looked exhausted, her silver hair disheveled, but her eyes were sharp. I knew you'd do it, she said, hugging them both. Thomas would be proud. She agreed to testify, but only if they could guarantee her safety. Aisha arranged for federal protection, and Clara moved to a secure location. As they prepared for the trial, Ethan and Marcus faced their own battle. Harper's lawsuits were draining their savings, and the men in suits were now openly following them. One night, a brick shattered their car window, A note tied to it. Last warning. Ethan's resolve wavered. Maybe we should stop, he told Marcus, his voice breaking. This is too much. Marcus grabbed his hands, eyes fierce. They want us to quit. That's why we keep going. For us. For Clara. For everyone they've hurt. Ethan nodded, drawing strength from Marcus's fire. The box, still on their table, felt like a beacon. The trial date was set, and the group worked around the clock. Sarah coordinated with activists, while Javier reached out to more ex-employees willing to testify. Emily Chun published a series on the human cost of Harper's actions, featuring Ethan and Marcus's story. Public support surged, but so did the threats. Ethan's old co-workers, once silent, began speaking out, their voices adding weight to the case. As the trial loomed, Ethan opened the box one last time. Inside, tucked beneath Clara's note, was a photo he hadn't noticed before. Thomas and Clara, smiling at a pride parade, holding a sign, "Love wins." Tears stung Ethan's eyes. This was why they fought. Not just for justice, but for a world where love could thrive. The courtroom was packed. A sea of faces, supporters, reporters, even former Harper employees Ethan hadn't seen in years. He sat beside Marcus, their hands clasped under the table, the box tucked safely in his bag. Clara, under federal protection, took the stand first, her voice steady as she detailed Harper's schemes. She spoke of Thomas, of the box, of the years she'd watched the company destroy lives. The jury leaned forward, riveted. Aisha presented the evidence: emails, recordings, the server files, each piece a nail in Harper's coffin. Mr. Harper, in a crisp suit, sat stone-faced, his lawyers scrambling to discredit Clara. But the financials were undeniable, backed by the federal raid. Elena, the prosecutor, called Ethan next. He took a deep breath, Marcus's hand squeezing his one last time. "My name is Ethan Caldwell," he began, his voice echoing in the silent room. "I gave 10 years to Harper and Sons. They fired me for loving the man sitting there." He nodded to Marcus, whose eyes shone with pride. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone they've silenced, everyone they've hurt. We're here to stop them." The trial stretched over weeks, each day a battle. Harper's team painted Ethan as a liar, but the website's stories, dozens of ex-employees sharing their pain, swayed public opinion. Protests continued outside, with thousands chanting for justice. Emily Chin's articles kept the pressure on, and even mainstream outlets picked up the story. Clara's testimony was the turning point. She revealed a final piece of evidence: a recorded call where Harper admitted to targeting undesirables to protect his brand. The jury gasped, and Harper's face went pale. Ethan felt a surge of hope, tempered by years of betrayal. Could they really win? The verdict came on a crisp October morning. The jury found Harper and Sons guilty of racketeering and discrimination, with Mr. Harper facing prison time. The courtroom erupted in cheers, Marcus pulling Ethan into a tearful embrace. Outside, protesters celebrated, their signs now reading "Love wins." Ethan spotted Clara in the crowd, safe at last, her smile weary but triumphant. The aftermath wasn't easy. Harper's company collapsed, leaving Willow Creek reeling. Ethan and Marcus faced backlash from old neighbors, but support poured into donations, job offers, even a book deal for their story. They moved to Columbus, starting fresh, the box now on their mantle as a reminder of what they'd overcome. One evening, as they walked through a park, Marcus stopped, pulling Ethan close. "You know," he said, his voice soft, "I always knew we'd make it." Ethan smiled, kissing him under the fading light. "Because of you," he said. "And Clara. And Thomas." The box had saved him, not just with its secrets, but with the courage it ignited, a courage to fight, to love, to rebuild. Years later, Ethan and Marcus stood at their wedding, the box on a table beside them, its carvings gleaming. Clara was there, her silver hair glowing in the sunlight, raising a glass to their future. The world wasn't perfect, but it was better because they'd fought. And as they danced, Ethan knew love, when fought for, always wins.